Okay, well, hi everybody. We'll get started. So I'm here to introduce Chuck Hansen. He is a private sector information technology pioneer with over 25 years of experience advising and deploying a wide range of solutions. As co-founder and majority shareholder of Hansen Information Technologies, he was instrumental in building the first major international IT solutions provider dedicated solely to streamlining the operations of government. Prior to co-founding Hansen Information Technologies, he worked with several Silicon Valley venture capitalist firms as a senior executive for troubled high-tech companies. He was the youngest vice president and corporate office ever for a 20 billion New York Stock Exchange bank holding company. And today he is going to present his talk on how to blow $1 trillion of other people's money and get away with it. If you guys could please silence your phones, but keep them on so that you can tweet to us on Don or Do. That'd be great. And without further ado,
Thanks.
here you go.
How's everybody? This is a tough time slot. I know it's not after lunch, but I put it in my writer not to speak directly after lunch. Show of hands. How many of you have jobs? How many are paid by other people? Okay. Okay, all right. So, as the title would imply, how to blow $1 trillion, that must mean you can get some of that, right? Because that's what it's all about. So I'm gonna talk about that, how easy not only you blow the money, but how you can get it. So I think that'll be nice. So it's not like how to get away with murder, not how to blow $1 billion. So it's not like that, but nevertheless. Here's my favorite quote. Maurice Menedik is a Belgian poet. At every crossing on the road that leads to the future, each progressive spirit is opposed by 1,000 appointed guards to the gates of the past. So who would ever want to be the one guy? You want to be one of the guards, right? That's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about how to be one of those guards and how to get a seat at the table. We want to be one of the 1,000. It's too much trouble to be that one person that has a new product or new technology. Let's just be part of the group. Because after all, those are the guys that get to spend the $1 billion. So how do I get a seat at this group? How do I, in an industry, how do I actually get that seat? Now, one of these guys, he's in the wrong room. But, and some of you, if you're not for the presentation, then it's okay, it won't hurt my feelings, just get up and leave. But how do we get a seat at this table? Because this industry is fraught with very interesting things. Now, my 16-year-old daughter knows the industry I'm going to talk about, the construction industry, and she was an intern this summer. And her impression was, I said, could you describe kind of our business? We sent her to a couple of trade shows. She says, Dad, it was kind of like Mean Girls. So I said, well. But I truly believe, as in most industries, this one is for sale. And it's there for the taking. And it's so easy to take the money. Why don't you just take the money? Now, you may have to put your ethics to the side. There may be a few people that may get sick. Maybe they go to the hospital, so you've got to be prepared for that. When you charge for a product, you may have to be prepared to go ahead and have it not do anything. So if you don't mind those things, I have something for you. So how did I get here? Well, this is my first, more than likely my last Dawn and Doom. But I had been in the industry since '83, and I'm 61, full disclosure. I have had a lot of facial cosmetic liposuction surgery, so I look better than I really am. What happened is my father had his first heart attack, and I was going to really be somebody important in Silicon Valley, and my mom poor-boyed me to come back home to Sacramento to help the business, and I said, look, only 60 days, then I'm out of here. And I stayed until I sold the company. And there were some interesting things that we did along the way, and some applications. My team was in New York, watching the Trade Center go down on 9/11, putting in the first ever call center in New York City. At Caltrans, every work order is done with some of the old applications. But by this time, you have 400 people, and it was time for me to get off. So I did really what I wanted to do, which is just play the saxophone. So that's what I did. I retired. I was completely out of it, gone. Everybody knows me from YouTube. I'm a sensation. I play with horn bands like Tower of Power and Huey Lewis, and I really, once again, try and be somebody. So hang out, and I will tell you, I am probably the only person I know that really does well playing big saxophones. And when I say big, I mean I had, let me tell you, Bird, Judge Judy's bailiff. Bird lives close. He came to the studio. So I told my wife I wanted a studio, so I built a 10,000 square foot recording studio just for the. Bird showed up, and he's a sax player. He says, I gotta touch that thing. So I let him do that. And then one day, it all came crashing down. It was horrible. It was a painful day. Somebody that I trusted called me, and basically said, Chuck, some of my old students are complaining about this thing called cured in place pipe. There was some other presentation this morning, I won't get into it, on CIPP, and so you just have to look at the videotape for that. And so I asked him, I said, well, what's the problem? He says, well, we can't, we're televising this thing, we're viewing it, we're trying to see the defects, and 6 months later, we're having them leak all the time. I said, wow, I like that. I could get in that business. I bet I can make a lot of money. I don't have $1 trillion. And it was interesting. It was like most cured in place pipe looks perfect. But when you really take a closer look at it, they've got these things called leaks. And if you really take a close look at it, you can kind of hook this thing up with a little dye dropper. And if you really wanted to, and not many people see this, so don't worry about it. You want to be in the CIPP because there's so much money. Nobody sees this. Nobody sees how it just goes through the liner and goes right down. Even though people say that's not true. So how much is $1 trillion? I mean, there's a lot of money in this, and a trillion is a big number because if you look at the number of seconds that's 31,000 years. There's a lot of dollars. There's a lot of dollars in this. If we had $1 trillion, we could give $3,063 to every man, woman, and child in the U.S. $130 on Earth. We could buy Apple. In fact, Apple is on a sale since they announced their iPhone 8, if you've noticed. So they've kind of collapsed, dropped $50 billion. So that's all money we can get. And we could buy Alphabet. Did Google put the name Alphabet just because they wanted to be alphabetically ahead of Apple? It's like having AAA. I'm AAA repairman, so we could buy Google too. That'd be nice. But as it goes with pipelines and the value of just this one little slice of the planet, when we take a look, and I heard a couple of numbers, there was 100, there was 30. If we looked at $80 a foot, that's my $1 trillion. There's a lot of money to be made here. And that's just the US. I see some of you look like you're not from here. That's not a Trumpian sort of thing. But if you're interested in traveling internationally, helping other people, there's a lot of money to be made. Again, you don't need to have very much scruples to show up, but there's some beautiful cities we have in the Middle East. The architecture is just stunning. Unfortunately, most of the new pipes that they put underneath, the water is at a groundwater level. This is actually a videotape with water inside of it, but it hasn't been connected yet, and the pipes are already full. Staggering. They only get less than 3 inches of rain in the Middle East. All the major cities flood when that occurs. It's my favorite music. Now, when you do go to the Middle East, I will tell you, it's kind of nasty over here, but they do have such wonderful amusements. I mean, if you take a look see that little red thing right there? That's called Ferrari World. You've all been there. And let me tell you, having just been to Ferrari World, because I want to get all the money I can, I mean, the fastest roller coaster on the planet. It's to die for. You just get a lot of bugs in your front teeth when you sit in the front. All you need is information. And my other famous quote from Napoleon is, hey, war is 90% information. He, by the way, didn't have, in that last battle, all the right information, and so that was his problem. The other thing that you've got, especially in the United States, how you can take advantage of cities so easily, there's so many of them. I mean, 50 states, 5 U.S. I think we have like 4.5 U.S. territories now just because of Puerto Rico. I don't think we'd go there anytime soon. But counties, municipalities, townships, special service districts, all you need to do is take a few simple hints in the pipeline business, and you could go and take advantage and make extreme amount of money. 87,000, highly fragmented. It's wonderful. You don't need to go to the big ones, okay? This is the city of Houston when the photographer was quite active. This is when I was there. I'll tell you, my first wife and I actually bought a house. My first 2 wives were both psychology majors. My third one, though, she's the keeper. She's the keeper. She's a civil engineer. So, let me just tell you, I went over here. I stopped by the first house I bought, and there was stuff littered on the side of the street. It was just incredible. So, look what everyone thinks. Gosh, it was the rain. All that rain, 50 inches. That's truly amazing. Well, that's not really the case because we know we supplied them with new pipes. We relined some of the pipes that were all leaking anyway, and we got paid for it. And when we look at them again, just a few days ago, all of them have defects in it, right? So when the rain came, it all came into the sewer system and all percolated back out. It went right back out, and we had 1,000% fecal levels. No matter what the pipe, it's great. We could put anything in the ground, and we can still make money on it. Cities will still accept it. In fact, this other thing like CIPP, what we're finding today, and again, cities don't really care about this, is that the majority, over 2/3 of all renewed pipes, have defects. They're all missed by the cities. And 20% leak greater than 20 gallons a minute. It's kind of amazing. And don't worry. Let's say we just put in new pipes, like vitrified clay pipe. This is a new pipe we looked at just last week. It's new pipe. How did it go? Not very good. Every joint was leaking. This is newly constructed pipe from a week ago. But don't worry about it because people usually what they required is visual inspection. You visually inspect that and it's okay. But you may have a leak at every joint. You may have somebody that finds it occasionally. And then you have other things that you don't have to worry. This is the industry you want to be in. Pipe rehabilitation, replacing of pipe, $1 trillion. There are some studies out there, but to the best of my knowledge, like the one in LA, people tend to like to suppress those. I found it, so they're getting out. Even things done by other people here at Purdue, whether they're done by real people or students or what have you. And sometimes you get other things, but don't worry about that. And again, if you're bothered by safety issues with your own people, this may not be the industry, but if you aren't, you too can make money off this. Pull up a lawn chair, breathe deeply, have a good time, and that's not a problem. And yeah, there may be a few kids that get sick, but that's okay. We have an industry that supports you. That's the important thing. And there's no polygraph test. You can get away with murder. No one is going to hook you up to a machine and ask you questions about your work. That's the great thing about this industry. It's one of the few. Got to get in there while you can. There are some irritating technologies that may be out there, but they don't really, kind of do much. So there's a number of things that we're looking at. We don't even know if these are going to be around. They're probably not very well funded. And our industry has such a big backing that we could suppress these things as well. No, what we like is the tried and true visual inspection. If we can see it, we can believe it. And this started back in 1950. And despite the high resolution nature of TV, this is what all of our specifications in the industry base all of the product acceptance on. Simple visual inspection. It's great. It's particularly great because if I'm a new contractor and I put in two pipes together and I forget to, seal them, or maybe I go ahead and have a little annular rock that goes in between those, no problem, because I'm not really going to see it because I'm going to use CCTV. Now, there is a camera that can go up and turn left and see if you've sealed it right. Those of you who are my age and anxiously waiting for Harrison Ford to come out in Blade Runner 2049 will remember that camera in the first Blade Runner that went into the photo and then dodged over and then went a little further and then went like that. So there are cameras that can do that. They don't exist, but wait for it. And even if it's televised, even if somebody gets it on videotape, nobody ever cares. Here's two pipes, 2011, 2014, and they appear to be leaking water at the same location 5 years apart. Good thing it's only 11 million gallons if you wasted, But again, even if it's TV'd and you see something weird, nobody really looks at them, so don't worry about it. But it's what we do, and we could charge for this too. Now we may see some things we don't like, but you know what? Our industry will tell you a little crib sheet on everything. Like, for example, see those little wrinkles there? I've gotten rid of mine, but these wrinkles, nobody knows it, but those wrinkles actually leak water. And they can be measured. But don't worry about that, because a lot of these things, this is not an inverted picture of the moon. This is another thing. But, no one tells if it's leaking, or maybe they might. And maybe if I cranked up the heat too much, kind of did some accelerant burn on it, that's okay. It'll self-heal. We have a standard list of things that you could tell your client. Now, this one was really interesting. I actually have a moving video of this, and I thought the wall was moving, but no, it was just infestation that had gone into that particular defect. 16 months old. But that's okay. And even when we televise it after acceptance, so what if we put stuff in and it gets a rut, creates a big hole in it? It's all right. You know what we can do? We can always substitute another TV tape for this, and the client will never know because they all look the same, right? So, this happens to be a interesting videotape. No defects. In fact, the report may have been filled out even before this video started. Good thing there were just a few minor defects. It was accepted. This is a major city, despite the evidence to the contrary. And you know what? Cities will even let you put new pipes in next to the old ones, and they may leak. The new ones may leak more than the old ones that were just put in there, but they don't care. Cities, as long as you go out and do it, spend the money, not a problem. And guess what? Those fans of point repair, this is where, hey, only one joint is bad. I'll just go down and fix that joint, right? I was state educated, so I went to Cal and UCLA. And so, when I say joints, some of you people, I know this is a joint that goes like this, not like this. So, when you take a look at these things, cities will actually let you fix a couple of feet of the pipe, even if the rest of the pipe is fraught with damage. It's okay. It's all right. The money is free. It's out there. And it's $1 trillion with evaluation. And we have, in this industry, the greatest graphics to show you just how wonderful these things can be. And we have, did I tell you we have our own magazine? This was from today, saying how great CIPP is. It's just wonderful. Now, there are some, and you may hear stories of some agencies that are wise to this. They say, wait a minute, we want to go ahead and use new technology and test the pipe. I like this example because this was a company wanted to be pre-certified and pass the test. What do I have to do to pass some of these more difficult tests? And so I got a call and I said, well, are you currently working on a project someplace? He says, yeah, we are. He says, right here. We're working, can you come down? But Chuck, if you come down, you can't tell the city you're there. I said, oh, I'm here for the money. So I get it. Of course I won't tell the city. He says, that's good. That's good. So when we take a look at their work, and I let him know, hey, guys, this is an unacceptable pipe. I said, Chuck, don't worry. I go, what do you mean don't worry? He says, you know what? All the city uses is TV inspection. So what I'll do, if there's something new, I'll boost up the resin to catalyst felt ratio, and I'll do a little bit more. Good thing I don't have to do much of this. I said, what about the city you're doing work for? Don't worry about it. By the way, this is the same contractor that was just caught down in San Diego. And what will happen with all the bad installed failing CAPP and all the other different pipes that we've got? And how much do we have to, what's the cost? That's a bonus. We just call that a bonus, okay? So I want to help you help me. That's our story. That's what we want to do, right? So that is, it's kind of interesting. I did this one time. I was talking to a room full of gorgeous marine biology people, and about saltwater infiltration into sewers and high fecal contacts at beaches. And so I went ahead and I said, I don't really know why I'm here at this talk, because, at high tide, that water will go into sewer pipes, that are all broken anyway. And at low tide, it goes back out the way it came in, which reduces the amount of treatment that we have at the treatment plant. So I don't know why that would bother anybody here. I'm a firm believer in transaction processing of everything that's going on. And with big data that we're having come out here, I really think that there are some things going out. And if I had to look out 20, 30, 40 years, and these 80,000, in the UK, there isn't but the big 12 water companies. That's all they've got. The regulations are very strict. That's across a population of maybe 60, 70 million. And with 80,000 units that are all doing these things, how do we kind of look at this? And I really do believe, just like banks know everything about us. And they have a return on asset for every one of us. They know our loans, our credit cards, our deposits. They know our transactions. They charge us fees. They make revenue on. They have our name and number, and they know every month, every day, how much money they make on us. And I think in 40 to 50 years, and with help of young, new minds, our governments need to adopt that same thinking, not in a negative sense, but at least at least to have a common thread and shred of understanding of how we manage these assets. The revenues that we get from water or sewer or garbage is at that residence. The asset that we have, the pipes that go one way or the other, I forget which one goes where, the fixed asset value, the expense, the operations of supporting that infrastructure. To me, it is how do we really apply and rate the conditions so that everything is even? New Zealand is probably the closest to this model. And most of our cities have a balance sheet. They have a number for their fixed assets. There is no connection to that number on the balance sheet of their financial statement to what's in the field. They may geographically know it, but only New Zealand is the one country that I know of that has actually inventoried every stick of pipe and put that into their financial accounting, fixed asset, to actually, on a monthly basis, come up with a depreciation schedule and knowing how many customers are serviced by that pipe and what pipes go upstream or downstream. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of organizing things. We have all of these customer-initiated transactions that we do, whether it's a complaint or a need for service. And so how we amalgamate that, I think, is very, very necessary. And then having those tools to bring that in. And part of it is just because how government was done, we do things on a lowest cost basis. And we see silos of data, and what young minds and what young people can do to help us is how do we consolidate that information? How do we actually take those transactions and make them more citizen-centric so that they can be associated closer to what we've got? There's always the promise. I always see these things, and I immediately think about the pipes that we have and how do we actually take those sewer or water pipes that we have in our neighborhoods and cross-reference those and have the condition and the age and the condition of the age of all of those to really understand that. And it's an accounting nightmare, the actual debits and credits, because this is we have workers that go out every day, whether they're contractors or whether they're our own workers. And we've already lived through the first 30 to 40 years of modern asset management systems where workers don't really want to have you know where they're working. And now we're actually saying, no, let's have that information go specifically against assets that we have in the field so that we can develop life cycle costing and those things. So it's a non-trivial thing. So a lot of the work that has been done in my life, and I'm tapped out. I have no more original ideas, as you can well see from the last 3 slides. So what we really need help doing is coming up with those systems that can help us amalgamate that information so that we can apply the tools that we are creating to do assessment, prioritization, and corrective actions on assets to make sure that we do lengthen the life of those. My last, not to be anarchistic or not, but history punishes those who come late. I've always believed, and we've got a couple of folks that are UV liners that do, this is anybody that's out there selling new product and trying to overcome the hurdles of those 1,000 gatekeepers that want to put that down, something that is better, cheaper, faster. Trying to justify those things is so difficult. But you know what? It's game on. You've got to jump in. You've got to try those things out. And with that, I'll take any questions. I'm going to the bar right after. Andrew's choice. How many engineers do we have in the room? Is it all civil? Any electrical? Mech-elect? Okay, good. How many accountants? No bean counters. All right, all of you guys, when you finish your undergrad, go get an accounting major so that you actually know something how your bank account adds up. I say in fact, that's what I tell my daughters. Be that engineer, undergrad, and then get an MBA at whatever school you can, I could afford at that time. So, anything else? Seriously, we will take a break then. I'm good with that.
I'm actually a little bit shocked at the condition that you were describing.
Yep.
Is that all the infrastructure?
New and used. You know, it's interesting. I just a week ago I was in the UK. They made a mistake and asked me to come and speak at the UK condition assessment masterclass. And the Brits, when Maggie Thatcher privatized the water and sewer business in 1989, it was really interesting. They basically floated shares on all the major water companies. Today, I believe 2 continue to be publicly traded. And so they have investors, they have a number of things like that. And honestly, things are so bad as far as condition. According to one of the largest water companies, they don't really want to know where the bad pipes are. And it's for a good reason, because they've already allocated funding to replace everything. And if you think about it, because of the trenches, these pipes must be in perpetuity, because you will never recapture that trench again. So that trench has to be basically accounted for as an asset in perpetuity. What they're interested in is, please show me, because just because I have a cast iron, just because I have a brick sewer, doesn't mean it's all bad. And so it's worth to them, and their number is 250 pounds per meter. So, divide that by 3 and, nudge it up. Just find me pipes that you think are still perfect, because that is revenue that I can defer. I won't have to spend that. And so as you look at the strategy, yes, all pipes are in disrepair. It really is just a variation on that theme. And finding where those worst assets are. If there is a way to pinpoint, fix a section of that as opposed to the whole pipe. I mean, there are ways to look. And quality contractors, quality engineers will help you do that. And luckily, there are a few that will do that in a very safe and sane sort of way, just like fireworks, I guess. Anybody else? Sir.
I missed the first part of your presentation, but you were talking about the cured-in-place pipe, and you were talking about it seemed to be when they're installed, they're actually permeable, or there's places where they're permeable. Could you talk a bit about that? Again, I apologize, I missed the very first part, and talk about you mentioned something about removal of those after they've been installed, and it sounds like that might be necessary too. Can you talk about the removal of those? How does that happen?
So cured-in-place pipe, I've been around that since my early days with Houston when they inspected all 5,000 of their miles. And there's a number of different ways to install cured-in-place pipe, sectional, the whole length. You can use steam, boiling water. You can use UV lights to thermoset that pipe. The problem is if curing and really cooking, if you cook unevenly that pipe through its length, the risk is that, or if I've crinkled, that means that part won't cure properly. And I won't be able to just see where water will be able to flow through that. There are ways, things that I have to do to make sure that they're done correctly. I've actually seen some pipes where a pipe has been lined, and of course, once you line a pipe, you want to reconnect the services, so you'll have to go take a remote tap cutter where you can visually see that dimple. There's other laser ways to do it. I'll have to carefully cut that out. Gee, you know what? If I cut that out incorrectly, if I over or under judge, and I've seen some people miss it and they just keep poking holes until they find that soft spot. I can actually create defects that leak more after I've lined the pipe than after, because I'm making bigger holes as I go. Because many of those pipes, after curing, cool down, it's shrinkage. So, so they shrink a little bit. That annular space, if I haven't fixed where my water percolates down, and if it's just coming into that annular space that I've created, it's going to go and it's going to drop in. The same amount of water is going to encase that new pipe. And if I actually have a pipe, I was called into a major city 3 months ago. And the director said, look, we like the price. We're getting $25 a foot to put it in. I like that. But Chuck, I have 3 categories of CIPP. There's really bad, there's pretty bad, and there's things that we think are bad. And looking at those things and out with them and seeing stain marks and actually infiltration in a new pipe that was just put in is just shocking. But we're just now finding out and getting those tools that can understand that. Removal, that's another thing. There are some interesting technologies that are coming out, like a spray-in-place liner, where I can rough that surface up. I come in, maybe have a polyurea or something that is a fast-setting thing to spray over that to create that. Dragging it out. What a lot of folks may do is they'll just reline right over it, if they're caught, if they have to. So it's going with those quality people that really know how to deliver a good job, and they're out there. The gentlemen here that do UV liner, I know they didn't get into the first business because there were issues with evenly curing that pipe, and we borrow a lot of things with Europe. Europe does a lot of this stuff. They've never wanted to dig and replace. Now, Switzerland does. Switzerland only digs and replace. But as you take a look at where we're going, you want to find those people that really understand it, don't hide behind it. Otherwise, it's a target-rich environment to make money off of people that don't care. Yes, ma'am.
It's going to take too long for her to get over here. How long should a general pipe be put in a braided pipe? What is the life expectancy of such a material?
So the cured-in-place pipe industry will say anything from 50 to 70 years. There was an EPA study that was done on gravity CIPP that confirmed, after taking samples, core samples, of sections, regardless whether roots were coming in or not, but the liner itself can last a long time if it's done correctly. But that means, what are you going to do 50 or 75 years down the road? And there are pipes today that were put in the early 1900s that are still serviceable. And if there is not a capacity issue, if there's no visible leakage, age in pipe material, to have some algorithm to give me that list of things to fix is not the way to go. We somehow have to have a non-invasive or non-destructive way of evaluating those assets, because the savings of not having to replace pipe that we don't have to far exceeds anything we can look at. And I think more work in coming up with material sciences that will last longer, I think is great. So there are people that are out there. It's that in this industry, in the government, where low bid wins most of the things. I mean, I almost took the clip from the movie Armageddon when they're sitting on the rocket, and he says, "You realize," or as he's talking to Bruce Willis, "You realize this is all put together by the lowest bidder? We're going to shoot." I'll do that later. In a world of low bid, there has to be some recognition by appointed and elected officials that low bid may not be the right decision. You're now officially cutting into my alcohol consumption time. Is that it? Then with that, I thank you very much. Thanks.